I have finally passed the $1 million mark in sync income, but the placements that everyone normally flexes actually made me the least amount of money. So I pulled together real numbers from over 400 placements in 8 years, and 47% of my income came from two categories that most producers normally ignore. If you chase the wrong ones, you could waste thousands of dollars in other sync placements. And the quiet winner at the end of this video paid me at least 5 figures on the minimum floor. Here's how I'm grading each type of placement. Number one, money, obviously. Not just front end fees, but back end, international royalties, and the random checks that hit later during the year. Second point is going to be access. Can you actually touch these briefs that people talk about? Are they locked behind agencies and closed circles and weird deals? Third thing, impact. Not just credits for your website, but leverage. Because one placement, depending on how popular that song or IP is, could open you 10 more doors that were closed before. And the fourth one's going to be repeatability. Can you land it over and over and over again? Or is it just lottery ticket? For instance, reality TV is repeatable, trailers are not most of the time. Chasing prestige without repeatability, you're going to bleed time and cash. Now let me show you based off my data where the real money lies. Okay, first off, commercials. Automatic S tier, and there's a huge reason why I'm starting right here. On the money aspect, I give it 5 stars. It's access, about 2 to 3 stars. Impact, 5 stars. And repeatability, I would say somewhere around the 4-star range. Here's the reason why. National TV commercials can pay anywhere between $25,000 to $500,000 for a 1-year term. About 40% of the time, you'll still be able to own said music that was used. A regional campaign, which would be a little bit smaller, would land anywhere between $4,000 to $50,000 as well. And here's the part that most people won't say out loud. When a brand likes your sound, they stick. In my catalog personally, roughly about 1/3 of the commercial spots that I've actually landed have found some way to renew after the first year, normally for either a similar or a higher budget fee. It took me about 187 rejections before I got my first yes, but it was totally worth it because my first placement was like $10,000 from a Taco Bell ad for 30 seconds of music. I spent about 5 hours making that track when I normally spend like 12 to 15 hours on trailers and other types of music that normally delivers a worse return for me. Access is the biggest choke point for placements for commercials because you're going against other agencies that have decade-long relationships with them. But here's the cool thing. I ballpark around 30 to 70,000 music placement briefs annually as far as with US commercials alone. If you even get just 1 or 2% of that access pool, that's 300 to like 1,400 different opportunities that you can possibly have your music placed. You layer renewals on top of that, and 9 times out of 10, you don't have to win a bunch of placements in order to make a real income. Here's the other thing I like about it. It's pandemic proof. While Hollywood was shut down, guess what? It was still running in production. Brands want music that's fresh, authentic, and original. If you have your paperwork together and position your music the right way, commercials pay the rent. The next one actually pays the bills because of its higher level of repeatability, and that's reality TV shows. While commercials can hit like $175,000 annually if you're really playing your cards right, reality TV shows pay anywhere between $250 to like $2,500 per placement, which is kind of boo-boo when you think about it, but there's a legit reason why. A music supervisor from our private community sessions told me that they need anywhere between 40 to 200 pieces of music per episode, running across a 20-episode season. They're literally burning through music, and it would cost billions for a company to have the same content output with those kinds of rates. Even if you do the math, I placed around 187 cues over the last 5 years. That's roughly at a $500 average. That's about $93,000 in 3 years. $93K. It's an unsexy lane, but it pays. Because I was not wanting to do reality TV shows for a while, I lost out on at least $60,000 the first 2 years. I ignored it. What makes the difference with this is volume. Now, as a trailer composer, I can think about perfecting one single track that's going to take me 12 to 40 hours to finish. Meanwhile, if I took that same time and made like 5 to 10 reality cues a month, which one's actually going to pay the bills? Most producers don't even know these kinds of briefs exist. And if you want ongoing visibility on the different types of briefs that we have, join our private community. We teach you how to read and understand these briefs and give you access to pitch to them, which is pretty awesome. It looks like this. The link's in the description. So for me, reality TV, because of its high repeatability, we're going to give it a B-, so to speak. Yeah, so I'm going to put it right here. From the money aspect, I give it 2 stars. Access, 4, because everybody wants to get on a reality TV show like Love is Blind or Love Island or whatever. Impact, I give it a 2 just because no one remembers what happened last season or the music that might have been played. Repeatability is a 5 because they need so much music on a regular basis. Reality TV shows aren't going to make you filthy rich unless you're in with the production company that works on a network of shows. but it will keep you in the game while you chase the big placements. Now that the rent is taken care of and the bills are handled, let's talk about what I think is the most prestigious type of placement that you could possibly get. And also, in my opinion, the most risky. Trailers. Now, here's what most people don't say about them. Everyone knows that trailers pay a lot. I had to invest over $3,000 worth of sample libraries before I actually was taken seriously with my trailer submissions. Not a placement, a submission. 6 months go by, over 200 hours in the DAW, $3,000 in tools, no money back. For context, category-wise, you could put in 20 hours into a top commercial that lands 6 figures, that's way shorter, needs less production time, and in that same 20 hours worth of time, you might get one trailer finished, and it might not place for like 2 years. At the top end, though, music quality is a given. Everyone sounds incredible, which is why I had to invest so much into sample libraries that sounded legit. But here's the cool thing. When it actually lands, it feels absolutely unreal because your cue survives cuts over cuts and a clear wall of decision makers. It's a major confidence boost to let you know, like, yo, I'm actually legit with this stuff. Trailers, because of their prestige, I'm going to give them A tier, just because if you land one, the momentum can really move you forward. Money, I'm going to give it a 5-star. Access is a 1 because it's really hard to get into a music library that specializes only in trailers. Impact, 5, because I mean, everyone remembers the music from trailers, especially if it's a personal favorite IP of theirs, like Superman. Repeatability, I give it a 2 because sometimes they will take that same music and use it for smaller campaigns. The prestige is unmatched. The checks can run anywhere between $20,000 to $100,000 for one song. One of the Sung-Chi trailers that came out a few years ago was like $80K, which is insane. So if you're set on, I want to make trailers, just treat it like a high-risk lane and make sure that the other types of income that we have are covered so that you don't have to worry about, oh no, does this work for me or not? Now, the biggest myth in sync licensing and the placement type people assume will make them the most rich actually chops a huge chunk of your earnings out because of its type, and that's social media. My most exciting day was also the most disappointing. A major brand picked up on my song for a TikTok campaign, and it ended up getting 47 million views, which is insane. I started getting DMs and tags. People were resharing the music. It was really cool. But the check was like $500. It was for unlimited use in perpetuity. 2 months later, that same track licensed on a regional commercial for like $15K. Their spot probably only reached about 50,000 people, but it was on broadcast TV. So I got back-end royalties on top of that. So what do you think? Which one would you rather have? Social campaign rates, even though they cost a fraction of the time as far as distribution, reach way more people. For some reason, the broadcast rates are always bigger. So because of this, I'm going to take this and put it in the C- tier. Not even C. I'm going to put it right in the middle right. I got seduced by the vanity and eventually watched the counter of views climb up, but my bank account numbers stay the same. The only real exception for this is when a platform integrates it into a bunch of other ad products and it can spread the popularity of that song to help tell a story or sell a product. So yeah, social media, C- tier. Money is a 1-star. Access is a 3, impact is a 2 if it goes viral, and then repeatability is a 4 because content creators constantly need music. Now let's look at the placement type that's been proven to really build careers if it's done right, and that's streaming. Netflix, HBO, Apple TV, Amazon Prime. These aren't just placements because they have so much cultural appeal. Like for instance, if you got something on a Stranger Things show, like boy oh boy is your life about to change. Streaming can pay anywhere between $2,000 to the highest I've ever seen is probably a 30K. But that's on top of the fact that we're not famous. If you're famous, then obviously you can charge way more, and they have the budget for it thanks to increased prices for subscriptions. But again, one placement in a hit series can stack your performance royalties for years. For instance, you might get a low back end, which is like maybe $3,000 up front, but it can turn to 27 2 years after if it's still on the platform. And then the exposure is actually real. For instance, getting a song on a Netflix show where it's spotlit or in context is great for an artist. For instance, Lizzo's Truth Hurts exploded when the Netflix movie Someone Great released on their platform. She always accredits that moment for that 3-year-old song that blew up her artist career. And the opportunities are limitless because Netflix actually released something around 600 to 700 original titles and seasons last year. And even if a fraction of them needed somewhere between 20 to 50 pieces of music, that's 13 to 34,000 songs just on the Netflix platform a year. Now, across all major streaming platforms combined, that number could climb easily to 1 million songs per season that are needed on streaming platforms. Here's the problem though with streaming is that it pays kind of slow. It can take anywhere between 3 to 6 months in order to get paid, depending on how big the studio studio is and how quickly you can get your paperwork taken care of. Sometimes when series travel to new territories, a smaller market like Taiwan, the back-end royalties will echo that country's rates, which could be tremendously lower. And also, not every song is spotlit. Like most of the time, normally it's the background music over multiple different shows that stack your bank account. I've had about 23 streaming placements across platforms with the same catalog, and it brings in steady checks. Streaming is probably the most predictable lane because new content is constantly being needed, and the funds are normally flashier. So I'm going to put streaming at A tier. Not just because of the funds, but also because of the repeatability. On the money side, 4 stars. Access, 3. If you have a good sync rep, which we have a list in the description below and inside of our private community. Repeatability, I would say, is probably a 2 to 4, depending on what kind of agreement you have. Big upside, big variance. Now, let's talk about another super popular type of placement, and that's sports. Sports, for me, believe it or not, it's C tier. And I'll tell you why. There are 2 different games that are being played as one when it comes to sports placements. There's one where there's blanket coverage, which is like, for me, money is 2 stars, access is 3, impact is 2, repeatability is a 5. And that's because, again, like we were mentioning before, on broadcast TV and broadcast shows where they're actually doing a lot of commentary, there's a lot of music being played, but because of that, the rates are way lower. It's always background music. And then you have the other side, which is like the promo. Money for that is like 5 stars. Beginning of a season, beginning of the playoffs, the finals, stuff like that. That's when they actually will send some money towards campaigns where the budget's a little bit larger. Money for that's normally 4 stars. Access is probably 1 if you were really trying to target those things, but impact is a 4 because now you're getting back-end royalties, which you can run up your numbers for performance royalties. And then repeatability is 3 if you have music that resonates and you can create a good relationship with that specific franchise. Same category, but completely different worlds. The first tier, which is the blanket license, that's like an F. And then the top tier I would put as an A. So to split the difference, we're going to grade it as a C right here. The trap is that networks offer blanket use, which means that they have unlimited access for that specific group of music across all different platforms. You might find your music on a highlight reel and think you made it, but actually you didn't. That's probably like a $25 back-end royalty, depending on how crappy the blanket license is. That same track, if it's used on a primetime football opening montage, that can range anywhere between $25,000 to $75,000 for the length of the season. I try to shy away from blanket deals because if you have something under a blanket deal, like those tracks are locked up, you can't use them anywhere else. Sports are all really predictable, which is nice because the season starts up every year at a very predictable time, like March Madness. So that particular style of music you can make ahead of time and be able to hit that mark. Same with Super Bowl commercials, which is part of my S tier. Blankets can help build your relationships within the industry, but promos are what really pay the bills. Now, let's go to something else that I don't have as much experience in, but one of my colleagues has, and that's video games. Video games also are kind of split into 2 different worlds. You have your indie titles, which could pay you, if you know an actual developer, anywhere between $1,000 to $5,000 for a flat fee. They own all the rights to the music. And when you stack up those kinds of things, you can actually earn quite a bit of money. When it comes to AAA titles, if you're the head composer or you're adding additional music, that can range anywhere between $10,000 to $50,000 very quickly. Plus real bonuses tied to sales. One time a colleague sent me a picture of someone that tattooed the melody of the main theme of their video game on their wrist. Like, it's a real thing. There's hardcore fans out there, and being a composer tied to a great game can do a lot for you in the long run. Like paid speaking events, panels, more work on video games that have that particular sound, like Jedi Survivor, the guy that composed that music, because it became a trilogy, had his job on lock for quite some time. It makes sense because players hear your music for like 40 to 100 hours at a time. No medium drills in music like that ever. On top of that, you might end up having access back-end royalties when people stream while they're playing video games and stuff like that as well. Also, they have other opportunities when it comes to DLCs where you might not be the main composer, but you might be playing the commercial game when they're trying to promote the video game's release. So because of that, I'm going to put it at B tier. Money is 3 stars because it's split between 2 different lanes. Access is 2. It's very hard to get in, but after you do, it gets way easier. Impact's a 4, and repeatability is going to be probably around a 2. Now let's talk about the next placement that everybody wants to land, but it's really hard to monetize, and that's movies. Let's kill the Hollywood fantasy first. Indie films don't normally have a budget at all. If you get anywhere between $2,000 to $10,000, that's a win for the whole year, especially if you're getting it up front. Now, with a studio film, that budget is obviously a lot higher. It can range anywhere between $15,000 to $100,000 plus. But here's the thing, you're competing with other top composer teams that have personal agents for those kinds of opportunities. One of my colleagues who actually is in this world spent a lot on renting a studio, getting putting an orchestra together for the movie because the budgets are larger. They can do these kinds of things. And it was a nightmare making sure all the orchestration was together. It cost them about $8,000 to do. Real players, real studio, all that stuff. But with all that work, I could have probably made the same money with a commercial or even a trailer for that same film. And I can do it all in my bedroom for about $18,000. But here's the nice thing about getting a sync placement in a movie is the prestige that comes with it. That single credit on IMDb can launch your career miles ahead of everyone else. When I got my first movie placement, I was putting it in my email signatures, my pitch decks, when I was reaching out to earn more sync placements or sign with more libraries. It automatically raised the perception of like, oh, this person actually knows what they're doing. Biggest problem with this though is that, again, most movies are gatekept because of how much money is involved or how much budget is involved. There's a lot of politicking. You got to go to a lot of different festivals like Sundance, the Toronto Film Festival and stuff like that. It's just a lot of work and a lot of competition. So movies, I'm going to probably put in a B tier, maybe B minus, because the money is like 3 stars, which is great all around. But access is going to be like a 1.5. Again, you really need to have a good resume in order to be taken seriously. Impact is going to be a 4 or 5 because if you are starting to become a film composer in something that hits, you're immediately in top demand. And then repeatability is going to be a 2 because of how hard it is to get started. After that, it kind of ramps up. But you have to be consistent. So that's the tier list. Commercials are obviously at the top. Social media at the bottom. I can't stand social media placements. They stink. Everything else kind of fights per position, but notice there's no F tier. Every placement's better than streaming. But there's one special placement that I haven't talked about that's made me probably the most money, and that's car commercials. That's going to be an S tier for me. In my experience, I've never seen a national campaign for a car commercial be under 5 figures. That's where it starts. That's the bare minimum. It makes sense because even though there might be buyout deals, these are the largest commercials outside of the Super Bowl. One car pays for the placement if they sell it. Now think of it this way. If you're actually making music specifically for these types of brands, if you land 4 commercials, you're set for the year. One placement at a top automaker could give you about anywhere between $50,000 to $85,000 on an outreach campaign. If you get 4 of those within 18 months, you got yourself a full income. They're pushing out commercials for cars all the time, right? There's a new model every year. There's always a summer sale. There's always a holiday push, and they normally need anywhere between 4 to 6 tracks per commercial. After you get your first one and understand the sound that they're looking for, those kinds of placements start to snowball. So while everybody's wrestling for like trailers and being on popular TV shows, you could be making the real bucks. Most producers won't fail at sync because of their talent. They fail because they don't know what the market actually wants. And last month in our private community, I spoke with the senior music supervisor at the NFL, not the network like CBS, the league. And he said there are 3 specific genres that they're actively looking for but are short on right now. High budget slots just sitting there empty. So click this video to learn exactly what they are.